there are reasons that AEW fans say that the goalposts always are moved when AEW is successful. All In was the greatest event they've ever had on North American soil. The greatest event in terms of pay-per-view buys. They did really well. I don't think they hit as high as Meltzer said they were projected to, but they did really well from what I saw in pay-per-view buys. The attendance, almost 30,000. Really good numbers. Really good numbers for All In. And then immediately the goalposts were moved because they did a residency in Chicago that held 1,100 fans for 6 shows. Because it just made sense to keep your production, and they didn't have to tear the arena down 6 nights in a row. I mean, it made sense. It made perfect sense. Tonight, or live during the show, they were doing their final residency show for Collision, and then they go back on the road again. But people were bitching about that, and then that piece went down, and now they're bitching about the fact that apparently AEW is not protecting the business because they didn't because Christian Cage took a concerto the way it was supposed to be taken and actually didn't get hurt but sold it really well. And so my question is, should they have actually hit Christian Cage? Should they have protected the business to make it seem real that Christian Cage got hurt and, risk an injury to Christian Cage? Well, if they would have done that, remember when Shawn Spears mollywopped Cody Rhodes with a ungimmicked chair at the very first couple episodes of AEW Dynamite, and AEW, they don't take care of their wrestlers. Or remember when Nick Gage came out with that pizza cutter and they, told him to stop doing it. And that was in Charlotte, by the way. We were there.
That was a wild show.
And remember when apparently they just don't care about wrestler safety, and yet all of a sudden they do the move correctly, but a fan that was in the arena sitting on the other side, like, took a video from the opposite side, kind of ruining the illusion. And like, they're not telling the story from the fan's perspective. They're telling the story from what they show on screen. And on screen, it looked pretty real. For the same thing back in 2023, Braun Breaker and Von Wagner. Braun Breaker, if you listen just to the commentary, it sounded like he murdered a man with smashing his skull into some steel steps. Video came out, and he never even touched the guy. But the story's being told through the lens of what is on screen on the TV. But obviously, with the rise of modern social media, we're going to get an inside look at the illusion. The illusion's no longer there. Everybody knows that there are certain things that are gimmicked, that aren't real. This isn't the 80s anymore. And so there's either one of two solutions to this. Number one is you ban all use of cameras and video devices and pull the Edge and Christian book and say no more flash photography. Or you have Christian Cage get his skull crushed in by 2 steel chairs and take the backlash there, or you do it the way that you did it. The way they did it was the way it was supposed to be done. But again, there's so much nitpicking because you can't nitpick that AEW is going to not get a TV deal because they got a TV deal. You can't nitpick that they aren't going to sell out All In because they sold more tickets than were expected at All In, and All Out is already outsold last year's numbers, with still 40 or plus days to go. The AEW's on track to have the first profitable year in company history. So there, you can't talk about them in that negative light. And so now you have the social media outrage over the smallest of things. And I have this just concern because if I really wanted to, if I wanted to nauseate myself, I would watch a 2.5 or 3 hour episode of Monday Night Raw. I have Netflix. I can do it. And I could take a piece of paper and a pen and I can write down everything that I thought was terrible about the show. I promise you, it would probably be about 5 pages long. Because the show is so nauseatingly boring. And it's just not my style. But you know what? I don't do that. Because I'm like, for some people, Monday Night Raw fits their style perfectly. And they're allowed to watch what they watch. But I don't see how you have enough time in your day, unless you are a paid media member. If you're someone like Sean Ross Sapp or Dave Meltzer or Brian Alvarez who get paid, like wrestling is your business, you shouldn't just spend all the time in the world watching stuff that you hate. And yet these people move the post and they still watch the show and they hate on it because it gets some clicks on social media or it allows them to tell some cringy post. The news that we talk about with WWE isn't stuff that necessarily happens in ring, because I know you don't typically watch Monday Night Raw or SmackDown that much anymore. And I don't, and I watch it from a distance. I don't pay a whole lot of attention. My problem is that the goalposts seem to always be moved when there's nothing super obvious to complain about with AEW. When they're doing good business, you have to find something to scratch that itch that upsets you. And it's like, why do you care? If you don't like the show, why bitch and moan about it? Why complain about it? You obviously don't love it. And it's not my job as an AEW fan to convince you why you should love it. At this point, I just don't care. Like, if you want to watch it, you can watch it. If you don't, I don't really care. I'm cool with the people that watch it and love it, and I have my conversations with them. But if you don't want to like AEW, it doesn't bother me that you hate the show. And it shouldn't bother you that I'm not a big fan of WWE's current product. It shouldn't bother you that I think that Blake Monroe is so terrible, so stale compared to what she was in AEW. It shouldn't bother you because that's just my opinion on an entertainment source. And if it bothers you so much that you get upset about it, like, that's a you problem, not a me problem. I go to sleep just fine knowing that you can watch whatever the hell you want to watch.